Today we have Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai with us. He is known for his invention of email, and he is scientist, he is politician, that much I know it. And I think you have started 7 companies successfully, right?
That's right. Well,
Yeah.
it's actually been a few more, yeah, but at least 7
Okay.
successful companies in the
That's
high-tech
7
area.
successful companies on your name. So today we are going to talk about, of course, about his, invention about email, and this Ayurveda, yoga, and Siddha lineage, which he is representing from his childhood. So we'll be talking about it, like, what is the real essence of Ayurveda, yoga, and the Siddha lineage, and how they are correlated to each other. So Dr. Shiva, could you please, you wanted to show some video to us, right?
Yeah, well, let me begin by, first of all, to your audience, before I go into that. I mean, where do you want me to start? I mean, I think the best place to start, Abhilasha, is to let people know that ultimately, what my mission in life is to really educate the world on system science. What are systems? And to everyone listening, they should understand that when I post my videos, particularly recently on YouTube and these, particularly on other channels, there is a very, very, censorship in the United States has not ended with Elon Musk, and also talk about that. In fact, we should talk about predictive analytics and what's going on, but I recommend everyone, every Indian particularly should know who invented email. And so you should share this video widely. And I know people have known it for a while, but it should be known much more wider, not only in India, but throughout the world, because the invention of email is really not about me, but it's a story of the fact that innovation, which is really an expression of one's creativity and solving problems, occurs anytime, any place, by anybody. And unfortunately, that what I just shared with you, the fact that innovation, which is creation, takes place anytime, any place, by anybody. If you believe in the concept of a divine being, that means divinity is within anyone. So anyone who tries to contain that and say, oh, you have to go to MIT or IIT or Silicon Valley and then you become an innovator, that is in many ways against many, many fundamental laws of nature. And so what's fascinating is that some of the most biggest prejudiced people, and I did this on a previous video, who don't want to accept the actual facts, black and white, about the invention of email, are Indians, because Indians have been bamboozled and brainwashed over the last 400 years through what you actually talk about, quote unquote, white supremacy, which has nothing to do with whites per se, but to people bowing down to a concept of skin color, and Indians have done that. And they, as a result of that, they cannot even acknowledge their own inventions or innovators, including the ancient systems of Indian medicine. So if you look at the science of Siddha and Ayurveda, which have existed for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, there's a lack of understanding. So I would argue Indians in India are more going towards allopathic medicine than Americans are. So it's very interesting. Americans and the West are actually fascinated by yoga, right? Fascinated by ancient systems of medicine. And the 1.6 billion Indians are moving rapidly away from this, thinking everything requires a drug. You can get so many drugs over the counter that you can't get in India, in the United States and India, which is quite fascinating. So I think for our audience, it'd be really interesting for, because I have a global audience, to understand this East-West dynamic and what a real yogi is in the modern world. And so to me, a real yogi understands system science. Most people who practice yoga have no understanding of system science. So I think we should talk about that. But, my journey really begins.
Do you feel that in USA people understand yoga better than Indians?
Say that again?
I'm saying, like, do you feel that, Americans understand yoga better than Indians? Because you are there for a long time.
Yeah, so the question is, do Americans understand yoga better than Indians? Well, I think the question is this. I think people in the United States, by and large, per capita, have a greater respect for yoga and traditional system of medicine that's growing than the Indians do today. It's actually declining in India, and it's a very important dynamic to understand. So you have incredible people who have knowledge in India of yoga and their systems. But I would say, 30 million people in the United States have touched yoga. That's 10% of the population. Okay. It'd be interesting to know if 200 million people in India have practiced yoga in some form. Okay. Because that would be about 10%. I'm not sure. Maybe it is. But I think the important thing to understand is, I think my journey in some ways is quite unique because I was able to traverse these systems of East and West, science and tradition, ancient and modern. And what I was able to discover was that if you look at all the language in these ancient texts used to describe yoga and the ancient systems of Indian medicine, be it Siddha or Ayurveda, that those principles match one-to-one, and I'll show you some work I've done directly with engineering systems. So they match, and these principles can be applied to your body. They can be applied to physical health. They can be applied to mental health, but they can be applied to economic health. They can be applied to understanding politics. So, the movement that I've recently built called Truth, Freedom, Health, and people can go to truthfreedomhealth.com, is really the pinnacle of all this. Truth, Freedom, and Health integrates the ideas of freedom, which is the movement of information, matter, and energy. Truth, which is our desire to take very different kinds of ideas, use the scientific method with the great rishis and yogis we're interested in, and find truth. Truth is a refinement of all sorts of ideas, but you can't get to truth without having freedom. And then with freedom and truth, you can get to something called health, because with health, then you have the strength to fight for truth and freedom. Now, why do I start? Why do I wanted to start with this? That systems perspective I just shared, freedom, truth, and health. Guess what, Abhilasha? They're directly related. In fact, the same as Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Okay?
Okay.
Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, to the Westerners listening, in the ancient systems of Indian medicine, they had three terms: Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Vata, and so when you went to a healer like my grandmother, who was a village healer in our small village in India, she would look at your face and then she would figure out what kind of system you were. Now, she didn't say that, but she would say, oh, this is a Vata body type, or this is a Pitta, or this is a Kapha. And then based on your body type, she would then figure out what were the particular disturbances in your body, okay, that took you off course. So in the Indian system, your body type was known as your prakriti, which is your system. Now, they had another term called vikriti. Vikriti was your dysfunction from your system. About 20 years after what I'm just sharing with you here, one of the things I did was I created a way for any human being in the world not to have to travel all the way to India to really understand these systems. And I created a tool called Your Body, Your System. And let me bring it up. So Your Body, Your System is a very powerful tool that gives people the ability, I'll bring it up shortly, but Your Body, Your System gives people the ability to understand, by answering a few set of questions, what kind of system they are, and how their body is a unique system, and how foods, exercises disturb their system. So I did it in a very systems way. And so it's taking it out of having to fly all the way to India, okay? But more importantly, in 2007, when I finished my PhD, I went back to India and I did a very detailed study to try to understand, because I've been, what's that?
In 2007, right?
2007, yeah. When I went back to India, I did my Fulbright in really trying to understand these ancient systems of medicine. And what I uncovered was that the ancient systems of Indian medicine, which have existed for tens of thousands of years, match one-to-one with engineering systems principles. So the principles that went into developing the iPhone are the same principles that exist in your own body, okay? So yoga and Ayurveda are not some medical systems. They're actually an engineering system. And the concept of meditation and yoga, when you sat down and you applied these principles to your body, in my view, I consider myself a rishi in some ways, a teacher and a scientist. was to use your body as a vehicle to understand these principles. So let me sort of show this to you in a very simple way. Let me share my screen here. I think I should be able to do this. Let me go to the, because you're on Zoom over here, right? So let me share the screen here. To everyone listening, when you look at this analysis here, this paper that I wrote, the goal was that I wanted to really convey to people there's a foundational way to understand every system in the world. And in fact, all systems in the world have the same common principles. And that's what I really uncovered. And that uncovering allows us to really take things to a very, very different way of understanding. So let me go back to this. So if you see this, all right. So that was a paper. And what did I uncover? So let me go over to this. So along the top here, and by the way, we have an entire course called Truth, Freedom, and Health. We educate people every Mondays on this. But in the world, there are two kinds of systems: intelligent systems, which is this, and a dumb system. So very simply put, every dumb system just has an input and an output, okay? Input and output, like a light bulb. Input, you turn on electricity, you get light. But every system in the universe, even a dumb system, has these 5 principles: input, output, but more importantly, it has this concept of movement of information, matter, and energy, which is called transport, the conversion process, and storage. So if you think about a light bulb, you turn on the switch to the light bulb, electricity is transported through the system, and in the bulb, the electricity is converted by the filaments to light, and the light bulb stores all that. Does that make sense? Very simple system. Got it?
Yes.
All right. Now, if you take a more advanced engineering course at MIT or in any control systems, you'll find out that an intelligent system isn't simply just a light bulb input and output. An intelligent system has 4 other components. It has a goal. Intelligent systems want to go somewhere, okay? So for example, if you wanted the light to be certain brightness, right? Or you would set a goal. I want the room to be very bright. And there's a sensor which would track the brightness of the bulb, and a controller would input more electricity if the bulb was getting dim, right? If the room is getting, and in the face of disturbances. Without getting into details, an intelligent system has these 9 principles: a goal, a controller, a sensor, and a disturbance. All right.
Yes.
Again, I'm doing a 3-day program in about 2 minutes here. Okay. Now, if I were to take you to studying the Indian systems of medicine, this is what I uncovered. In India, and if you take a yoga class, people say, "Oh, karma," right? What is your karma? The word karma is used in a very wrong way. Karma has nothing to do with what people have been told. Karma really is right action. And there's another word in Sanskrit called karma phal, which is a fruit of action. Okay? And so when you take action, the forces of vata, pitta, and kapha are affected in your body. Vata in the Indian system was known as a term which talked about space and air. Pitta was talked about fire, and kapha was related to water and earth. Okay, and that's sort of where it is. So most people thought that's what they are. So if you go to an Ayurvedic person, I always say vata is composed of air and fire. Air and space. Pitta is fire, and kapha is earth and water. But when you really think about it, kapha is structure, because what happens when you combine earth and water? You get matter that's like cement. Pitta is a conversion element, and vata is the element of motion. And I'll get back to this. Now, if you started studying yoga, you would learn other terms: sankalpa, indriyas, vikaras, and manas. And what I did was, and the reason no one has ever done this like this, what I realized was sankalpa is your goal, your mission in life. Manas are your mind, the ability to take action, decisive action, and indriyas are your senses, and vikaras are the disturbances. So what you put this together, what you find is, on the left side here are how you're taught at MIT, an engineering system, okay? And on the right, you see Siddha and Ayurveda. By the way, Siddha is not just an herbal system. Siddha includes yoga, meditation, herbs, all of those systems. But fundamentally, no one has ever done this, ever, in human science, to put this together. And what you uncover is that the ancient systems of Indian medicine are an engineering system, and the engineering system of modern science is really related to Siddha and Ayurveda. So this is quite profound, because what it shows is that everything in the universe is a system, and these systems principles are invariant, which means whether they existed 1,000 years ago or whether they existed, modern engineering control systems principles were recently discovered, perhaps, about 100 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's what you uncover. What you uncover is that the ancient systems of Indian medicine are really an engineering system science. So what we have done is we have taken this entire system of Indian medicine, reframed it in a very different modern way, and we teach it, okay? So we have about 350,000 people all over the world, and that is taught as a foundation of the truth, freedom, and health system. Truth, freedom, and health is a system. It starts by teaching people this fundamental science. Now, why is this important? Because once you understand this, you can apply it to health. Everyone should actually be their own doctor. Hippocrates said he is a fool who is not his own doctor. Okay. And so the goal, but how do you become your own doctor? Well, most doctors don't even understand that the body is a system. They're very foolishly trained. So what I've uncovered here, I can teach people this in about 3 hours. And I can, in fact, I taught a course at Harvard and you had yogis and all these people. Most yogis don't even understand what the Indian system of medicine is. I'm sorry to say, they don't. It's been made into something it isn't. It's been very narrowed. So what I've uncovered in a very profound way, because I grew up in India and because I grew up in the United States, got both of these training, is the science of systems. And that's what truth, freedom, and health is. It explains to people. Now, you can apply this to your physical health. You can apply this to your scientific systems, anything, computers, innovation, and you can apply it to building a company. You can apply it to politics. So when we say truth, freedom, and health, that's no different than vata, pitta, kapha, or transport, conversion, and storage. You follow? And you need all three forces. So a country, a people should be judged, a society, how much freedom do they have? Because without freedom, you're not going to have great innovation in science. Some people may know when I was in India after I finished my Fulbright in 2009, 10, I was recruited by the Indian government, by the Prime Minister of India. I was given the award as the first outstanding scientist technologist of Indian origin. And I spent another 2 years in India, or 6 months actually, being appointed by Manmohan Singh at the time to run the largest innovation center in India. And in about 6 months, I discovered a lot of innovation doesn't occur in India because India is still under the feudal yoke of colonialism that goes back, 300 years. So many of the Indian institutions still have, particularly the government institutions. And when I uncovered this, I found out there were a lot of amazing scientists in India who are living in an old British feudal system. If you actually do great innovations, you're actually suppressed in India. Some of the greatest innovators and scientists in India had to leave and come to the United States, Gobind Khurana being one of them. He couldn't get a job as a lecturer in India. And then when he came to the United States, he became a Nobel Prize physicist. So I discovered amazing people in India, incredible scientists, but because of the feudal system, they're suppressed. So think about India. India, prior to the coming of the British used to, after they came to India, British used to steal Indian shipbuilding blueprints all the way up until the 1800s. India was quite an innovative place. But one of the things of colonialism was it actually suppressed that innovation in India, suppressed freedom, and made Indians think that only white people could innovate. And in fact, more white people recognize. What's that?
I said ISRO is doing good job, though, the government is involved in the administrations, but still ISRO is doing good job. And so we could launch ISRO, ISRO.
Yeah, but I know them. They could even do much more better, but they could do much more better. Okay. My point is this. It's not about saying, oh, this person's doing a good job. The over systemic issue here is this. And by the way, the United States is also being affected now. The social media in the United States is completely censoring human beings. So the United States is also in a very dangerous position right now because the freedom of the American people is completely being controlled right now because through social media. And as a result of that, you have significant amounts of attack on actually ideas and innovation. So that's also taking place. That's one thing people need to also understand. But anyway, truth, freedom, and health are intimately related. And the reason this comes back to the invention of email that people can understand is that when I invented email, occurred in a very interesting environment. Abhilasha, email was created not at MIT. It wasn't created by the military. It was created by me, a 14-year-old kid, in a very small medical college in the heart of Newark, New Jersey, which is one of the most poor cities still in the United States. All right. So think about what I'm saying. Email was created not at MIT, not in Silicon Valley, not by the military. Email was invented by me, a 14-year-old boy who worked very hard, was pretty bright, who applied himself, but it was done in Newark, New Jersey. Newark, New Jersey is one of the poorest cities in the United States, and a small medical college was there, and that's where email was invented. So what is email? What is email? We have to understand, and what is a problem I solve? Because ultimately, innovation and what yogis were doing, yogis were actually innovators. Yogis were educators, okay? That's what a real yogi was. They were looking for solving problems. They would understand the scientific principles of the world, and they would apply it to their body or their world around them. So when you look at the invention of email, the invention of email was really a very interesting problem, because I was a 14-year-old boy, and in 1978, computers were just coming into being. A computer would literally take up an entire room, okay? And in those days, computers were just barely, you could send simple text messages, small messages. So here's a racist individual or a stupid individual. ARPANET was the first email. It's absolutely forced. So this, frankly, idiot doesn't understand what email is. First of all, it was never called email. I'm the one who came up with the term. Second, this is sort of the racism here, because this fool doesn't understand what email is. So I want to really highlight this. Someone who's saying ARPANET was the first email. So this robot is simply repeating what he sees on Wikipedia. First of all, what was done in 1970 was a caveman version at best of WhatsApp, Abhilasha, okay?
Okay.
And it was done by a guy who wrote 15 lines of code to simply take text and add it to a bottom of a digital file remotely. That's it. At best, it was a caveman version of Facebook or caveman version of Reddit, okay? So, so I want to explain to this fool why he's a fool, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason he's a fool is because a lot of people do not want to recognize, because when they, like this guy is writing "fuck you" to me, example, okay? Why is he writing that? Because he's actually a racist. And you don't have to be white. Anyone who has a visceral reaction to seeing this face and that 14-year-old boy and saying, oh, you didn't invent email, that's a white supremacist.
Mm-hmm.
Because they haven't even bothered to look at the facts. So what are the facts? In 1970s, okay, who used a computer? It was old white guys with lab coats. And you had to use very cryptic commands. And one of the important things to understand is that on those systems, you could send very simple text messages. That's not email. If text messages are email, that would make texting email, right? That's not email. What is email? Well, in those old offices, you had something called the inter-office mail system. The inter-office mail system was a very complex system, okay? It was a system. And this is what these foolish people do not understand, because they don't understand systems. What is a system? A system has all those 9 principles. A system in those days, Abhilasha, was this inter-office mail system. And let me share with you some pictures here, so it'll make it a little more clear to you. That system was composed of a interconnected system of parts, okay? I think I have an example here. If you can see the screen here, I hope you can see it here. Can you see it?
I can see now.
Okay, let me also share it here. Also here. So if you consider this system being a very, very complex system, okay? So now you understand sort of quick system science. Now, and what this system consisted of was, and by the way, here's Time Magazine, 2011, when they did their research, they found out, yes, I did invent email. But you have to understand what email is, because foolish people don't want to understand what email is. Email, and the best way I can explain, I'm going to play a video. If you can, I think you should be able to hear this video. Let me see if you can hear it. So I'm going to play this video for people. All right.
Yes.
Can you hear it? So let me, so to everyone listening, Mo Roca, 33 years later, after everyone uncovered what was email and went into the Smithsonian, and after all the abuse I did, Mo Roca from CBS, who's a very respected journalist, actually did a video on this. So let me share this with you. Okay. So here we go. All right. So here we go. So let's play this here. And everyone should be able to hear it. All right.
Yes.
Here we go.
Finding the elected envelope. Remember that I just licked glue face? The olden days. Well, our electronic life is very different now. How many times have you already checked your email today? Well, there's actually one man who's hugely responsible for that. And he almost single-handedly made that blue face extinct. Next time your fingers hit the keyboard to write a quick email, you might want to say thank you. Shiva Ayyadurai. Specifically, thank the 14-year-old version of him, because he's credited with inventing email as a young boy in New Jersey in the late 1970s. Hi, Shiva. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Mom. Glad to be here.
How did email even come about? Share some of the important steps in the development of this.
My parents and the invention of email in many ways are probably one of the best examples of the realization of the American dream.
Born in India, Shiva lived in the slums of Bombay before his parents made the bold decision to move to the United States, give their family a new life. New life that Shiva took full advantage of, finishing high school at 14 and enrolling in a summer program at New York University. Shiva got a job in the office of the lineage. His focus was to transform the 8th century controls system into an electronic software he developed is very much like the email we all use today.
Every century has box folders, address book, return receipt, to, from, subject, BCC. All of these elements and more all came from the inner office mail system, which was a physical system that was used in every office in the world. It was at first end-user software application, which made computing accessible to ordinary people.
Shiva has 4 degrees from MIT. He's created multiple companies, and he also happens to be married to television actress and producer Fran Drescher. And when it comes to innovation, he is passionate about passing it on.
I really believe that being an inventor and a scientist is not complete without also being a humanist and thinking about how we can give back to the world and change it.
Thank you, Shiva. We wish you continued success.
Thank you, Mo.
All right. So that came out. So the history of that. So the facts are just black and white on this. All right. I have never claimed to create electronic messaging. Does that make sense? Electronic messaging is a transfer of messages between 2 electronic devices. All right. That would, and that's what Samuel Morse did with the telegraph. Sending text messages between 2 mainframe computers is not, it's not email. Okay. So what happened was in 1978, I converted that entire inner office mail system, hundreds of features, 14-year-old kid, 50,000 lines of code, named it email as a 14-year-old, a term never used before. And then in 1981, I got the first United States copyright. I have the actual legal right. Now, why would anyone say that I didn't invent email? Either you have to be a racist, either you have to be hating yourself as an Indian when you see the facts. I'm talking to Indians particularly, because most white people get it. But it is the Indians in India who've been brainwashed because they're actually white supremacists. And I talked about this. Indians in India are white supremacists. May seem like a contradiction. And the reason they're white supremacists is because for 400 years of oppression, they were made to think that only things created by white people were good. That's white supremacy. White people are actually very interested in yoga. White people want to understand herbal medicine. White people want to understand Ayurveda. Working class whites in the United States, when they see the facts, they say, of course, this guy invented email. But an Indian says, oh, what do you mean you invented email? That could not have been done by us. That must have been, the ARPANET. The facts are, I converted it, named it email, I have the copyright. Now, what's interesting is the problem in being in way I was brought up was Indians weren't good at promotion. So that was in 1978, 1981, when I came to MIT. It was on the front page of the MIT newspaper. No one had any problems. I won many awards, but I didn't promote it. It was only, about 33 years later, when my mother was dying, in a suitcase, she had saved all of these materials about the invention of email. Okay. And a very interesting guy. Can you see my screen here? Okay. I don't know what I'm sharing here. The editor of Time magazine, who actually came and reviewed all the materials, and 33 years later wrote an article called "The Man Who Invented Email." Now, I think Time, and he was a senior technology editor, Doug Aamoth. So to those of you looking at this, let me share this with you. So Doug Aamoth wrote this article called "The Man Who Invented Email." All right, there it is. For that racist fellow who didn't want to believe it. So, it's up there, okay? And very nicely, it's clearly described what is email, okay? Email is not the simple exchange of text messages. Is that clear?
Yes.
If you think it's simple exchange of text messages, then texting is email, Facebook is email, everything is email. In fact, the telegraph is email. So these people are very clever because they do not want to give credit, not only to me, but the fact email was done outside of the military industrial complex. It's like, imagine someone was using a bullock cart until 1978, and someone invented the car in 1978. Then imagine saying, oh, the car is also the bullock cart. I'm going to change car to refer to the bullock cart. You follow? All right. So this is black and white. So the reason I wanted to share this is there's absolutely no controversy that I invented email. The problem people have is understanding that email is a system. Email is not simply the exchange of text messages. Is that clear? Because if you thought email was that, then you might as well say the telegraph was email. You might as well say fax was email. You might as well say all those things. Email is a system of the entire interoffice mail system in electronic form, inbox, outbox, folders. And I was the first to do it. Am I saying someone else would have potentially done it? Sure. But I was the first to do it. And I have the copyright. And I have all the data. So what is the problem then? You have to ask, given everything I've shared with you, why is there any controversy? And that itself leads to a much bigger story. Why is there a controversy about this? There should be zero controversy. And the reason this controversy occurs is the fact that it occurred not at MIT. It didn't occur at a big scientific institution. It occurred at a small medical college, right? And by the way, you can do your own research. I have the copyright issued to me on August 30th, 1982. This is a legal document.
Yes.
There's no controversy for email, the computer program. Huh?
I have checked it.
Yeah, so I have the copyright. I wrote the system as we know today. And so the real fascinating issue for me in this entire topic, as a friend of mine, very smart guy, he said, why is there even a controversy? Why is there a controversy about who invented email? Why was a controversy fabricated? And that leads to a much deeper issue, Abhilasha, and that's this. When I was at MIT, I invented many things. I was on the front page between 2000 and 1981 for inventing many things. You can go, I won every award at MIT. But in 2011, when this article came out and went into the Smithsonian, then all the racism comes out. Why? The racism, the casteism, the classism, everything comes out. Why? Because email was not invented at MIT. It wasn't invented. You see, we brainwash people to think that all great innovations must come from war, particularly in America. Americans have been brainwashed to think that you go fight a war and then you get innovation. So killing is good. And so they have said the military invented email when they didn't. Email was done for solving a civilian problem. I was enabling women who were suppressed in those days. Women were only supposed to be a nurse, a teacher, or a house, mother. That's it. They could only do 4 things, or secretaries. And so, women would work on these typewriters. The bosses would tell them what to do. That was it. But I moved women from the typewriter to the keyboard. That's what I did. That was a liberating move for women. And a 14-year-old boy did that because I had respect for women. I did not think that they were dumb and stupid, which is what the old white men thought in those labs. They said, oh, this woman cannot use a computer, right? But I created the interface. I made it easy. That was email as we know it today, period. So every woman out there should know that it was a 14-year-old boy who brought the digital age to women. I did that. And I have to, the other thing is to recognize why credit matters. It took me 40 years to fight for credit and to, in fact, think you should get credit. I always thought you worked hard and people give you credit, but I found out there's a lot of thieves in the world. They actually steal your credit. And the reason they do that is, and the reason credit matters, it tells you origin of where innovation comes from, where creation comes from, where real divinity exists.
Yes.
And from a yogic standpoint, email came from my loving family, some incredible teachers, and a mentor. You see? Email did not come from MIT, going and fighting war, the military-industrial academic complex. And this is why the invention of email, people try to make it an invisible story, because the invention of email explodes all these myths and it gives people back their power, because that says your child could be the next inventor of email. In fact, it was a 14-year-old boy invented the TV. So many inventions have come from everyday people, not from the military-industrial complex. And that's the important thing to understand. And this is why, in my election in the United States, you have the movement that we've created, Truth, Freedom, and Health, is as big as an innovation as email or cytosolve or my discoveries of integrating Eastern and Western medicine. And for people in India listening, I hope people in India break from their colonial mindset, because that's still where a lot of Indians are stuck in. And the youth have an opportunity to break from that.
Yeah.
And people in the United States, right? And people in the United States, unfortunately, are headed into that colonial mindset, what I call the swarm, by believing in people like Elon Musk. Elon Musk has, frankly, never invented anything. It's all marketing. Every company he started, all he did was try to seize control of those companies. But you're taking people who weren't really that great inventors and promoting them to manipulate people that all great things come from Silicon Valley and a few people. And you suppress stories like mine. And the reason it's suppressed is not about me, but to manipulate people to think all great things come from the few. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you were talking about this Indians, right? That Indians are not accepting this particular fact that you.
Well, no. It's not Indians are not accepting it. The smart Indians understand it. Okay, you can talk to Arvind Gupta, who was the advisor to Modi. Okay, Arvind gets it. I'm talking about the large strata of Indians who are still mentally under the yoke of colonialism. Okay.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about. Okay. Anyone who is actually open and reviews this will say, of course he invented email. But if you go to we should actually do some tests. Go on the streets of Bombay and say an Indian invented. Oh no, that's not possible. Right? And if you showed the picture of that 14-year-old boy, how would they react? How would they react? Right?
They will be surprised and shocked.
Right. And I'm saying that visceral reaction is what I'm talking about. Okay. That immediate reaction, that shows a brainwashing. And that brainwashing has been done over 400 years of British colonialism. That's what's happened. So it's actually easier for an American to say, oh, he invented email. It's much harder to convince an Indian. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yes, I got it.
And that is the white supremacy I'm talking about. You don't have to be in a white skin to be a white supremacist.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So anyway, so I think we've shared, look, my life is not determined by being recognized for the invention of email. If I wanted that, I would have, in 1981, I would have hired a PR agency. I was very interested in systems, medicine, and it was only in 2011 when this controversy was fabricated that I have to defend myself. But everyone in the world knows that I invented email. Wikipedia, by the way, is a very racist organization. When the story came out, they went and destroyed my page. People went and tried to change it. There were blog posts saying this curry-stained Indian should be beaten and hanged. Let me repeat that again.
Oh,
People put out blog posts saying this curry-stained Indian, how dare he say he invented email? All right? Now, why is that? Why is that? And the interesting thing is, no Indian stood up for me. If I were Jewish, every Jewish person would have been saying, what are you talking about? You can't talk like that about a fellow Jew, right? So that also shows another slavery, okay? So it comes back to my point, a real yogi, I consider myself a true yogi, is an uncompromising warrior for truth, freedom, and health. And our personal lives and our public lives are fully integrated. How many politicians today say, oh, yes, I cheated on my wife and I don't take care of my kids. I'm abusive, but I'm going to be a good politician. You see what I'm saying? You follow? So a true yogi is uncompromising for truth, freedom, and health, because they know you have to have freedom, you have to have health, and you have to have science. All three, or innovation, all three have to exist. So you can't just be doing yoga exercises and doing all these pranayama, and meanwhile you allow corruption to take place in the world, right? And the quote unquote gurus in India allow that. And you can't just be a scientist just writing code or building companies without also being physically healthy. How many people you see that are 200 pounds overweight and they are coding software or they're doing science? That's not a healthy person. And nor can you just be fighting for freedom without being healthy and applying science. You say you need all three: truth, freedom, health, vata, pitta, kapha, transport, conversion, storage. You get it?
yeah.
That's why the movement that we've created is a very powerful system. It is not just, it's a system that I've created, like the invention of email. Truth, freedom, and health itself, Abhilasha, is a system, if that makes sense, okay? Truth, freedom, and health itself is a system. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And what is it? And so I just want to share this with you, and I want to play another video for you. Truth, freedom, and health is a system. It's a system that integrates all these components. So let me share that with you and the audience here. So if people go to truthfreedomhealth.com, I would say this is one of my greatest inventions beyond even email and beyond cytosolve, because it's really something that can change humanity. So if you look at this, what is truth, freedom, and health? My great-grandfather, who is an indentured servant, literally a slave, said ultimately that it is education that changes the world. So truth, freedom, and health, I teach people the foundations of systems. I have all these books we've put up online. We've created a community. We teach people how the body is a system. Let me show this to you. So when people join Truth, Freedom, and Health, the fundamental thing that we're talking about is there's lots and lots of information out there, right? But in spite of all that information, if you look at it not as a whole, if someone says, oh, he didn't invent email, email was in 1971. Well, they're talking about simple text messaging. Inbox, outbox, folders. When you open an email system, it's very different than when you open Facebook, right? Very different than when you open WhatsApp. Very different than when you open your text message. Got it? They're different systems. So if you're people who lie and steal and manipulate people, they deal in ignorance. They look at the system and they purposely choose a piece. Okay? And ignorance leads people to complacency and desperation and division. In fact, you can see, in spite of all the information we have in the world today, nearly 650 million people are anxious and depressed. 51% of the people feel hopeless. 40% want to overthrow their governments. 2.5 billion people in the world are obese. In the next 7 years, 4 billion, 50% of the world is going to be overweight, obese. Okay, 25% of them being children. Now, so information doesn't lead to liberation. In fact, what information ignorance is doing is getting people confused. Some people get desperate. Some people say, oh, I'm just going to go sit under I'm just going to go meditate all day, right? I'm going to leave the world, right? That kind of thing, right? Or I'm going to vote for XYZ party, left, or I'm going to vote for BJP or Congress, right? Or Democrat or Republicans. And what I've done is, and when people understand the knowledge of systems, they get liberated. They become active. They want to be organized in their communities. But in order to get this, people have to let go of the old way of thinking, and they have to become their own gurus or their own yogis, Abhilasha, okay?
Yeah.
Abhilasha, as we've taken the knowledge of East and West, political theory, right? Engineering theory, and put it all together. And the future of the world relies not on politicians, not on gurus, not on a leader. It relies on you. And what Truth, Freedom, and Health ultimately is, it's a system that enables you to become a guru. Does that make sense? This is about you taking accountability for your life and those around you. It's not about me leading someone. I'm merely a very, very humble educator. So what I've done is I've taken engineering systems theory, the theory of Ayurveda and Siddha, put it all together with political theory. It's really the science of everything. So in 3 hours, so I'll give you an example. We had a woman who does nails. She's an esthetician. She was teaching a PhD in Chicago about system science. That is real education. So we're taking everyday people and we're giving them the power of understanding system science. So then anyone who comes out of our movement is a leader in their communities. And by the way, anyone who goes through our program, they pay a very nominal amount of donation, like $100. But after they finish it, they can give it to as many children as they want. I went back to my village in India and I gave it away to 1,500 kids. So if you take it, you can give it to 1 million kids in India. Because our goal is the youth really need to understand systems thinking. Because without the knowledge of system science, what's going to happen is people are going to be manipulated by the left and the right, Republican and Democrat. And everything becomes a duality. Going back to spirituality and yoga, there is no left or right in yoga, right? There's just truth.
Yes.
There's just freedom, and then there's health. And that can only come when you take a systems approach. So let me just play this video for you, and I think it'll make it a little more clear to you. I think I can bring it up here. So I'm going to play this video for you. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
If you will have a homogenized world where we will become slaves, because there is a condition among the elites that really thinks they're better than you, deep down inside them, that you don't deserve the freedoms you have. They don't. This reality is what people need to wake up to, and we need to all unite working people. There's only one movement that can do that. And that is the movement that we started creating here in Massachusetts, the movement for truth, freedom, and health. Look, I've been a student of politics since I was a 4-year-old kid, studying revolutionary movements, left wing, right wing. There's a physics, there's a nuclear science to destroying the establishment. To build a bridge, you need to understand Newton's equation. You need to understand the laws of gravity. You need to understand Poisson's ratio. There is a way to build revolution. And that's why I put this together. My goal is to train an army of truth, freedom, and health leaders. We don't need followers like social media. We need leaders, but they need training because the educational system does not teach them history, nothing. So in 3 hours, that's what I've started doing. That's the solution. We got to train people first with understanding what a system is, the dynamics of all systems that affect nature. The second is understanding the interconnection between truth, freedom, and health. Freedom is the ability to move freely, communicate freely, talk freely. Without freedom, you cannot convert ideas, hypothesis into truth, which is science. And without freedom, you can't really get to truth. And without truth, you make up fake problems and fake solutions, which means you destroy our health. And without health, which is the infrastructure of us and our body, you can't fight for freedom. Truth, freedom, health. Third concept is it has to be bottoms up. Working people, people who work united. And what the right wing has done is whenever you say working people unite, that must be communist. Meanwhile, they've let the Democrats run unions, which suppress workers, completely corrupt. But when you look at the arc of American history, it's been when working people came up. We need to go local. Every solution I'm coming up with as a part of this movement, we're giving the science, which is a truth, and then we tell people what they can do on the ground, like with election fraud. You don't need to wait for some to train people to do local, fight locally. Forget lawyers, forget politicians, forget celebrities. You've got to learn politics. There is a science to it. They lock us down, we should be ready to shut them down. And the fourth part of this principle is a not so obvious establishment. So when you look at a system, there's always something that disturbs you from getting to your goal. But the biggest disturbance is a not so obvious establishment, which are those people who claim they're for you on the left and the right. The Al Sharptons who tell black people I'm for you. The Tucker Carlsons. Do you think any true anti-establishment person will ever be on Fox or CNN? I don't think so. They both mislead working people back into the establishment. Without this solid understanding of political physics and theory, you're screwed. You're going to follow on the left wing Bernie Sanders. Oh, he said something, or Robert Kennedy, scumbags. Or you're going to follow some right wing talk show hosts. They're not going to lead us to liberation. It's us. We're building a bottoms up movement, and that political physics, it's a nuclear science of change. Bottoms up. We have to organize to understand that there is people who talk a good game. And then look at what they actually do, left and right. I'm sorry, Sean Hannity may say some good things, but I don't see the urgency in his voice to get something done. It can only come when you weaponize yourself with the right knowledge. You need to be able to identify a rat. You know, Christ didn't go after the Romans, right? It was the Pharisees and the Sadducees who screwed him up. His own quote-unquote people. And that's where we're at. So these four concepts, I've built into a curriculum. People can go to truthfreedomhealth.com, and it's an educational program. We need to train people in political theory. You need to have physics. I've created that curriculum. People need to get educated. We need to get educated fast. And within half an hour, I can teach people 2 years of MIT control systems. I teach people those concepts. Then I apply it. Anyone can understand it. And then you say, oh, I build a bottoms-up movement. They have to get politically astute, and then they have to go locally and act, not sit there on social media. They have to act locally, defy locally, do civil obedience locally, but with knowledge on how to build a movement. And the Senate campaign's expanded to the movement for truth, freedom, and health, and they can find it on truthfreedomhealth.com. So people can sign in, they can get access to a bunch of videos. If they want to take a course and become a truth, freedom, health leader, I offer a full scholarship there. But we want people to make a commitment that they'll study, that they'll get certified, that they'll go do activities on the ground. So go to truthfreedomhealth.com.
Anyway, I hope that helps understand what we're talking about. Okay. So to all of you listening, we have now educated, we have about 500 million people throughout the world who know about this movement. In spite of all the censorship, we have about 500 million people throughout the world who've gone through the program in various forms. In fact, we have people in India, quite a number of people in India, lots and lots of people in the United States. And people are understanding that, especially people of all ages, they're recognizing that you cannot have left and right. Like there is a real solution to a problem. And I think people are recognizing that they don't trust many of these institutions anymore. So they're looking for a foundational way to look at the world. And that's what system science offers. So we have the science, we have a community, we've created the technology, so people can really learn this in a very profound way. And I'm saying the knowledge here is thousands of years old. It's the same knowledge that, by the way, about 10 to 20,000 people learn this knowledge and they keep it to themselves and they use it to manipulate people, okay? Right, in the old days, certain rishis used to keep certain knowledge, right? They didn't share it with everyone because knowledge is power. So in many ways, my mission in life, separate from the invention of email and the other things, has been now to truly empower people with knowledge. And so I think people in India and the United States should recognize that we're taking Western systems of engineering knowledge and we've integrated with Eastern systems of medicine, and we find that the principles are the same, these same 9 principles. And once you understand these 9 principles, no one can fool you. And more importantly, you have a solution to not follow some stupid politician all day and get used and bamboozled. And so that's why what we've created here is quite dangerous. but it's also very, very empowering, right? So you don't need a guru. What you need to do is you need to become a guru. And we've created the program for you to be a guru.
That's great.
Yeah.
But in
I hope
India,
that,
yeah, but in India we believe, right? Guru is required.
well, depends on the tradition, okay?
Yeah.
It depends on the tradition. There's many different forms of Hinduism, right? Many different forms of yoga movements. If you go back and you truly study the original movements of yoga, which I've done for many, many years, right?
Mhm.
By the way, most of the systems of yoga, to everyone listening, have now been fractured. The original system of yoga was everything was together. Meditation, martial arts, herbal medicine, the use of heavy metals, right? What you call all of this was together. Somewhere along the way, yoga itself got separated out into multiple subsystems. It was basically everyone created their own business. Meaning, if you look at the physical body has 7 chakras, right?
Mhm.
Some people took the lower chakra and called it Kundalini yoga, and they created their own business. Other people did Hatha yoga, the next 2 chakras. Other people did Bhakti yoga, which was a heart chakra. Other people did, the kirtans, right? Singing. And other people did the third eye, and other people did Sura Shabda yoga. I've done all of those, but ultimately, all of these yoga systems itself were separated. And then you separated out from Siddha. Ayurveda was taken over here, right? Siddha was completely hidden for centuries for all sorts of reasons. So yoga itself has become reductionist. And so it's not, the original system of yoga has been separated, but when you go back and look at the 8th century, when people like Sankaracharya were around, they said, if there's equality in heaven, why isn't there equality on earth? Very interesting question, because the original caste system of India was originally created to have particular skilled jobs, right? So you were good at this, let's say you were a good carpenter, you did that, but it didn't mean that your son also had to be the carpenter the rest of his life, right? Or if you were, right? So over time, and in the 8th century in India, some of the serious religious leaders like Sankaracharya and Ramanujam, they started saying, wait a minute, if you're talking about the earth being so, we're all connected to one, if there's equality in heaven, why isn't there equality on earth? And between the 8th century to the 15th century in India was a Bhakti movement. And most Indians don't even know about this history. And people should read a wonderful book called The Rise and Fall of the East India Company by Ramakrishna Mukherjee. I read it when I was 18 years old. There's only one copy I saw at Harvard, but what ended up happening was, it was like the Protestant Reformation movement. As the Bhakti movement spread, you saw caste sort of starting to dwindle away. You saw the rise of the merchant class and the artisans. This is before the British came. That's why in the early 15th century and the late 15th century, when the British came to India and then the Dutch, they were trading with these emerging traders. And so traders and merchants were revered as a better caste, okay? Now, what happened was, instead of letting that naturally develop, what colonialism did was, and the British were very clever, after the Battle of Plassey, they actually got this old Brahmanical priest, and they recoded ancient Indian law, pre-8th century law, to reimpose a very old caste system. So the British actually imposed the modern caste system in India because it gave them nice structure. And a lot of Indians don't even know this. The caste system was disappearing before the British came because there was this very powerful yogic spiritual movement. And then the British reimposed it because it served for division. So most Indians don't understand they're literally byproducts of Britain, right? Indians are byproducts of Britain. I mean, a lot of people in America listening, America had a good revolution, violent and otherwise, and they got rid of the British, right? But in India, something fascinating occurred when a revolutionary movement was coming in India, and there were people in the 1920s who wanted to have a good revolution. This is when Gandhi was transported in, and Gandhi's job was to quiet down that movement and transfer power from white men with crowns to brown men with white hats. That's what really happened. In fact, the Indian documents are not called the Declaration of Indian Independence. They're called what? The transfer of power. That's what happened. And this happened in all the colonial countries. The white men left, and then they left the brown people to suppress their people even more. They did a better job, but America had a good revolution. It gave people the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and this is why the elites in the world now want to crush the American Revolution. And they want to take away the First and Second Amendment because from a global standpoint, it was the First and the Second Amendment which gave Vata, freedom, okay? Movement of information. That's why the United States, a much smaller country with only 330 million people, has a $22 trillion economy because of freedom, because freedom allows people to talk about all sorts of crazy ideas. And out of freedom, you get innovation. But that too is being destroyed in the United States right now because of people like Elon Musk, who is a manipulated, he is telling people he's fighting for freedom, but he isn't. There's massive censorship on social media right now. So this is why I have a very unique perspective, having grown up in India, having studied Siddha and Ayurveda, growing up with a grandmother who was very different, and living in Bombay and living in the United States. So my life, out of all these different things, I see the world in a much different way. And I think the Truth, Freedom, and Health movement, that's why I recommend everyone go to truthfreedomhealth.com. I mean, you don't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and go to IIT or MIT. So the future is going to be us building a movement, bottoms up, and that's called a renaissance, an enlightenment. And that has occurred during various types of, like the Satya Yuga, right? Where people were enlightened. And that's what we're on. Either the world is going to go into massive darkness or it's going to go to massive enlightenment. That's where we're at. And the way it's going to go to massive enlightenment is we must shatter this idea that a small set of people know better. And these people are created to take people's power away. Because in all the ancient religions, Indian and Christian, always said the kingdom of heaven is within you. Period. God is within us. Divinity is within us. Okay? And what we have uncovered, or my work has uncovered, the science of systems connects heaven and earth. It's very practical. Again, with no exaggeration, what I've uncovered goes beyond religion, and it helps each person become their own guru. And you don't have to wear a turban on your head and grow a beard, or you don't have to play certain music. Anyone can do it. Anyone. So, and you don't have to go to MIT and get 20 degrees. Okay. So that is really my gift to the world. And it's a very dangerous gift because it exposes all of these people like the Kennedys and the Trumps and all of these people who think, oh, you have the name Kennedy, only you can be president, right? Or you have to be a billionaire to be president. And that's why I'm running for president in the United States right now, because I am an ordinary person who came from nothing. Nothing. Kennedy, he failed in school. His parents call up Harvard and get him in, right? Why should a person like that be running one of the freest countries in the world? I do like Modi to that sense from India. Modi came from relatively nothing, okay? So we have to go back to recognizing that we've created a caste system. Are we going to have a caste system in the world, or are we going to have a system of meritocracy? That's the future, right? Are you going to have people who are skilled, or are you going to have people who are there because they're unskilled, but their mama and papa got them into some big school and they have a certain name? So the movement for truth, freedom, and health goes at this very fundamental understanding, and the goal is to liberate people at a deep level.
Yes. Yeah, your thoughts, your ideas are very bold and unique. I think people will, like including me, people will take some time to absorb them and understand them.
Yeah, it takes some time to absorb them. It's a time it is an important time to absorb these thoughts. People have to decide. I don't know if you know, in the United States right now, the life expectancy in the United States is going down. Since 1980, the rest of the industrialized world is going like this. The United States is going down. Let me repeat that again. If you are an American and you have a child, your child is expected to live less number of years than you lived. So the life expectancy in the United States is going down. So think about what I'm saying. Why is that? It's because of all these policies. You don't get to see your doctor anymore. You don't get fresh food. People are massively stressed. They don't have family connections. All of these things have resulted in a decay of lifespan. And so how do you measure if a government is doing its job or society? Are they living long and prospering, right? And the same thing is going to occur to India in 10 years. 300 million people in India will have diabetes because they're eating crap food. They don't honor these ancient systems principles. So people have to decide, and they should absorb these concepts quickly, because the Indian obesity rate is going like that. 300 million people in India are going to have diabetes. Think about that, 300 million. So it's an amazing opportunity for all these pharmaceutical companies.
Yes.
But Indians right in their hand hold all the solutions, right in their hand. So I think I've said enough. I do want to end with playing a video of our campaign for president, because it'll intersect everything. Let me play that for you, if you don't mind. Will that help you?
Yeah.
Let me share this screen again. So you can see that, right?
Yeah.
So let me, to everyone listening, I'm going to play you a video that is really the video that is really our campaign for Truth, Freedom, Health, and my run for United States president.
The United States was born a low caste untouchable in India's caste system, a system of aristocracy, oppression, and racism. My name is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. I'm an MIT PhD, a Fulbright scholar, a scientist, engineer, entrepreneur, and inventor. My family and I left India to come to America on my 7th birthday. I grew up in the working class neighborhoods of New Jersey, playing baseball, mowing lawns, painting houses, and coding software. My friends and neighbors were blacks, Italians, Irish, people of all races. As a 14-year-old, I wrote 50,000 lines of software code to create the world's first email system, and was awarded the first U.S. copyright for email, recognizing me as its official inventor at a time when copyright was the only way to protect software inventions. I did that long before I ever came to MIT, revealing that big innovations can occur anytime, any place, by anybody. Growing up, I saw politicians dividing us by race and religion in both America and India, to have us fighting each other while they remained safe in their gated communities and in their playgrounds of Hollywood, Martha's Vineyard, and Silicon Valley. I'm a fighter. I fought racism and exposed their imperialist wars, fought for workers, and put my life on the line against global corruption. I never wanted to run for political office. All that changed when I saw working Americans as never before being duped by the establishment and the not so obvious establishment. Across left and right, we were being sold out and made to forget why we came to America and why America existed. Lawyers, academics, billionaires, celebrities, and politicians, elites, Clintons, Kennedys, Bidens, Obamas, Bushes, and White have hijacked America. They printed trillions for their friends. They delivered crumbling infrastructure, corruption, and racism. They transferred trillions to themselves, dividing black and white, fear-mongering, and fake science, lockdowns and censorship, dirty air, food, and water, pushing drugs upon us, making us sicker. We've been sold out. One set of rules for them and another for us. We deserve a warrior with a history of courage in putting everything on the line for you, who believes in you, not them, who has created a movement bottoms up for truth, freedom, health. I've exposed their lies at the right time, never waiting until it was popular. I've exposed their false gods who exist to lead you back to them. I've exposed their fake science of lockdowns and masking, and provided you solutions to fight them and win and protect your immune system, saving millions. I exposed Fauci, galvanized the Fire Fauci campaign when others remained silent. When they stole our election, we sued the government and Twitter in our historic 2020 federal lawsuit, exposing in bare view the government and big tech censorship infrastructure, the unholy alliance between government and social media companies. Where was Elon and his grifters? They stood by the sidelines and did nothing. They did not use their megaphones to help us when it could have made a big difference. Now our movement grows for truth, freedom, health, independent of all of them. Every day, millions are learning the science of systems, the knowledge the elites do not want you to have, so you may learn how to think, stand up, and fight, independent of the establishment of left and right and their fake news. Now it's time for you to join the movement, to win back America, to win back truth, win back freedom, win ones from above. From the rank and file who do what is right at the right time, not when it's convenient and popular. They can never represent us. What America needs is a movement by the working people, for the working people, who are educated, organized, decentralized, and fight for independence from their systems of control. And that movement exists. It's ready for you. We don't need them. We need us to go bottoms up, neighbor to neighbor. My journey, your journey are all the same. It's our time. It's time we had one of us. It's time to win back truth, freedom, health, to win back America. Be part of this historic movement all the way to our victory on November 5th, 2024. If you're an American citizen, pledge your vote now for Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, the independent candidate for U.S. president. No matter where you live, you can be a part of this. Volunteer as little as 20 minutes a day. Don't delay. This is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, and I approve this message, paid for by Dr. Shiva for president.
All right. I think we've given you quite a bit of information, and I hope our brothers and sisters in India understand what we're doing now. I hope it helps you.
Although you have explained everything very well from your side, including Ayurveda or then Siddha, Yoga, everything connected with the freedom, truth, and health. In the concept of this, you have explained it very well. So, and of course, you have shared all the stuff as well, the videos as well. So, yeah, but of course, I think this will be the different conversation for Indian people, for me as well, because we haven't spoken, we don't speak or we don't discuss Ayurveda or yoga or health in this particular context. So this will be something different. So let's see how people take it.
Yeah, and I think you should really, so to people in the United States listening, what's interesting is, and it's very fascinating for people in the US listening, or people even outside of India. Many people outside of India really love yoga. They embrace it, They want to learn about Indian culture and all that, because they see it as a very ancient and rich culture. In India, the opposite is occurring on some level. The people in India, because of what has occurred, there's these, I'll give you an example. In a small village in India, if someone gets sick and they go to the local doctor and the doctor doesn't give them an injection for something, I don't know if you know this, they'll come back and they say, oh, that's a bad doctor. He didn't give me an injection. So let me explain that to everyone. So people in India think that Western medicine is a cure-all for everything. So if your child is sick and you take them to the doctor has to give the child an injection so the villager thinks that the doctor really did some service. And if they don't, the person gets really upset and they'll say, that's a really bad doctor, right?
Yes.
You know this. But in the United States now, more and more people are starting to think, oh, what food should I eat? Okay. How do I combine foods, right? What exercise should I do? So in many ways, the West is moving to the East and the East is moving to the West. Okay. Meaning mentally. So that's why it's a very important time to bring the fruits of all of these together. And that's what we've done. I mean, there's a very important time to use Western medicine. It's a crisis tool. If you get surgery, certain times if you get horribly ill, right, at the late stage. But Eastern medicine is very, very powerful for maintaining your life. One of the things that some people ask in the United States, Indians don't realize how amazing their culture is, similar to Americans not realizing how amazing our freedom is. Exactly. It's a beautiful statement by Kristen, okay? I don't know if you see that. It's a very, very beautiful statement. She's saying Indians don't realize how amazing their culture is, similar to Americans not realizing how amazing our history for freedom is. It's really true. So India has this rich history of health and understanding. America and science, and America has a rich history of freedom and science. If they can be brought together, we can really transform the world. And that's what I've done with Truth, Freedom, Health. So to everyone listening, if you're in India, you can't contribute to our campaign for president, but you can become a Truth, Freedom, and Health warrior. We have hundreds of warriors now and scholars in India. We call them a warrior scholar. So go to truthfreedomhealth.com, sign up, join the movement. But India needs an educational movement too. And that's what we've created beyond just following some gurus and going. Look, I'm not saying don't go to an ashram and a temple, do all those great things, but you need something much more substantial that can change you and your children's lives. That's what Truth, Freedom, and Health is. And for those people in the United States, you can support our campaign, shivaforpresident.com. and you can become a truth, freedom, health warrior. So go do both of them. It's a way that you can support yourself. Anyway, I hope this was valuable, and it was good having this conversation with you.
Yes, yes, it was.
All right,
Thank
good.
you. Thank you.
All right, be the light. Okay, be well. Thank you. By the way, this means, I bow down to the God within each one of us, right? Namaste.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
we honor everyone's divinity. Okay, that's what this means to people who don't know what it means. All right, thank you.
Thank you.